All right. I'm here with Dan Radeball. Went to Loyola, class of
91.
and then went to University of Maryland to play lacrosse and get an education. Um, all right. Um,
Tell me about your project.
so my project is about the transition from high school to college lacrosse, and like school life too. So
Okay.
what was the for lacrosse wise? What was the transition like for you?
I feel like anytime you have a jump
Yeah.
from like middle school to high school, or even within high school, like JV to varsity, and then of course high school to college, there's a big jump in skill, speed, strength, and size, like all these things. And I think the thing with college that makes it even a little more overwhelming, at least in that fall part, is there's terminology that you don't understand. Everyone else there besides you and your classmates knows, or I guess also some transfers, but like you don't know what's being said. It's happening really fast. You're just trying to keep up. On top of that, the coach who you thought really loved you seems to be not loving you as much. Like that's the one thing I think anyone like understand the guy that recruits you is not the guy that's going to show up for the first day of practice. He's a much different guy now.
Yeah.
You're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you go from being, oh wow, I think this coach loves me, like, man, this guy seems to hate me. I don't know what I did, but like this guy is on me now every second of every practice. Um, so yeah, those are the big things. It's faster, guys are better, and you're just trying to catch up. You're just not comfortable yet at the very beginning when you get there.
So, what was your first practice like at College Park freshman year?
Gosh, Barrett, I don't know if I remember the exact first one. I do remember one of my classmates just getting abused at the midfield position, where because we had that year we had a great long stick midi and a great short stick, and they both took turns just de-twigging him and taking the ball from him, and we're like, man, he's getting worked.
He was free legs.
But like, I don't remember it personally, like how it was. I just remember those feelings of being like, wow, these guys are good. Things are happening really fast and physically, like that went up. Um, and like I don't know exactly what's going on. I don't know the names of the drills. I don't know different calls that we're making defensively. So I'm like, I've got a lot to learn.
And then in the realm of academics, what was it? What was it like in the fall when you were first kind of moving from high school or like high school level classes to college classes?
I will say this: the Loyola did a great job of preparing me for the level of work, the classes, all of that. Now, the thing that I didn't do great with was the fact that I'm now in College Park's a big place. A lot of your classes are 300 people. No one's taking attendance. No one knows if you're there or not.
Yeah.
So that is what I and most of my classmates struggled with the first semester. Is like we don't necessarily have to be there, and some of the times we weren't, and our grades reflected that in that first semester. I think they do a much different and better job now with, regardless of the size of the school, of making sure everyone's in class. Like from having gone on some visits with my son and daughter, they seem to know where you are all the time. And if you have an assignment, they know it. They want to see it 2 days in advance before you turn it in. So like we didn't have that. We had study hall. So if you were a freshman, you had to go to study hall in Cole Fieldhouse for like an hour every night, and that was it. But no one was there to make sure you were studying or like it was different, And we were able to make those mistakes. I don't know that that's still the case. Like I'm sure you can still screw up, but like we definitely screwed up, and then we had to get our way out for the next couple of years.
So it was kind of hard to balance your social life and academic life, and then on top of that, the whole lacrosse thing.
Yeah, I think going back to what we were just talking about with the classes, the social part of it was the part that made it that we gave too much emphasis and priority to the social aspect and not enough to the school and possibly even to lacrosse. But again, that has changed too. I don't think you guys get the freedom to do what we did. Like there was no rules in the fall in terms
Yeah.
of like going out. Like you could go out 7 days a week. In the spring, nowadays I think teams just go out on Saturdays. We could go out. We had a 48-hour rule, so just 48 hours before the game, you need to slow it down, like Thursday, Friday, if you had a Saturday game. So like all of that has changed, and so I don't think you'll have the freedom to do that. But for us, that was a big thing. And the social part in a place like College Park, you're on your own. There's stuff going on every single night, right? And you can go out if you want. You know what I mean? Like, so we would go out probably more than we would like. But I think for you guys now, it's going to be the same, except it's going to be a little bit more structured. I think for you guys, it's going to be, and it was the same for us, and we just didn't do a good enough job. It's about time management. It's about having a schedule every day and sticking to it. And I think you guys are going to be able to do that pretty quickly. You're going to know these are the class times, these are my practice times, these are my lift times. This is times I have to meet with a counselor. So in speaking with kids nowadays, their days are pretty mapped out from like 7 a.m. to say 7 or 8 at night.
Yeah, so it's a lot more like structured now than it used to be.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have as much of that freedom, meaning, and I think that's good, especially for the younger guys. Yeah. And even now, like the routine in anything you do, it's good to have that routine and know this is what I do every day. I get up at this time. Yeah. I do, take care of these things, and then I go about my day. So I think you'll be better off with that.
How would you say the time, like your commitment, like time commitment between lacrosse, school, and social life were doled out?
You mean how much?
Yeah.
So there's a rule. Like the NCAA has rules on how much time you're supposed to spend with your sport. Yeah. But in my experience, they're fuzzy, and I'm sure today they're probably even more fuzzy. Meaning, if it's 20 hours a week, but there's certain things that don't count. Like maybe your time in the weight room by yourself doesn't count or whatever. You're going to spend a lot of time on your sport. And I think the other thing, it's just become more and more competitive. There's more good players. There's way more good teams. Yeah. And there's a lot of competition within your team. So you have all this time that you're going to have to spend there, but you're also going to have to find time on your own to work on yourself, like individually as a lacrosse player.
And that's kind of expected. Like the coaches expect you of that.
Yeah. So you might have had a 3-hour practice and a lift, but you better find time to get 100 shots in or get on the wall or do some footwork on your own. Whatever it's going to be if you want to be in a position to play. Like so.
And then what do you think, I mean, as far as like stepping on campus freshman year, like what do you think it takes? Like how do you make that transition the right way to get time as quickly as possible?
To get playing time?
Yeah.
I think like anything else, a lot of it is going to be attitude.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to need to come in as if you, and not cocky, not in a way that you're going to like aggravate upperclassmen or arrogant, but you're going to need to come in with the confidence that like, I'm winning this job. Right? I'm going to win this job all day long. And then you play like it. And you make the plays. And you have to also have the resilience factor, knowing that even if you are doing that, you're still going to have to climb. Like you might be out playing guys, but you still are going to have to climb over time. They're going to need to know that they can trust you. And you're going to get chances in the fall, in scrimmages and everything else. And you just need to step up and make plays. So that they know you're there and you belong. And that you belong there. And that you can play at that level. So that's the thing, and obviously they need to know you're a workhorse. Yeah. They need to know that you're working hard in the gym. So with your strength coaches, they need to know. Your position coaches, they need to know that you're like putting in extra work, watching film, all the things that you need to do, and then they're gonna know, okay, this guy's ready.
Fair enough. Is there any advice you want to give to guys making a change next year?
I think, man, just enjoy it. Like you never get those 4 years again where you're going to be playing a sport with a bunch of you're going to make great friends there. That'll happen regardless. You're going to have great friends, guys you get really close with. You're going to have a blast. Enjoy it. Like, enjoy it, every minute of it because it does kind of fly by.
Awesome. Thank you
You got it,
for the
Barry.
interview.
Anytime.
Yeah. All right, I'm here with Coach Carl Russo. He's assistant coach at Marist College. Plays for the Atlas Lacrosse Club in the PLL, and it went to Albany. So, Coach Carl Russo, what would you say was like the biggest like the hardest change for moving from high school to college?
Yeah, so I think lacrosse-wise for me, so I was a goalie, so I would just say the speed of the shots. I think in high school, especially where I played, it was not the biggest, I guess not the biggest hotbed for lacrosse. So, some of the teams that I was playing in high school, weren't really the best. Maybe had a shooter or two that could really bring it. But other than that, I think just just the speed of the shots. And I know like the first couple weeks, it took a little bit of adjusting, to the college shots. So I think that was the biggest thing is just the speed of the shots. Every guy in college could bring it. And like I said before, in high school, there's a couple guys, who I played against who could shoot really fast. But other than that, it was just kind of the speed of the game, the speed of the shots. So yeah, I would say that those are the two biggest things for me.
Gotcha. And then, what would you say? So, like you said, you came from a high school that wasn't like the biggest lacrosse hotbed, so some of the kids weren't necessarily as competitive as like some of the other hotbeds. Like, how did you adapt to that getting into college?
Yeah, so I think for me it was just putting in the extra work when I got into college. Like the first couple weeks, we didn't really have practice yet. We kind of started a little later. So I probably had 2 weeks to really kind of settle in with classes, and then when I was in that class, I was just asking some of the guys in the team to shoot on me. And at the time we had the Thompson brothers who were obviously some of the best lacrosse players ever to play. So just getting shots from them and just other guys in the team was huge before I even got into like a settled practice. So that's what, just kind of every day, just kind of seeing shots and, asking guys to shoot.
Gotcha. So, actually, on that topic, in terms of like time commitment, how did you balance that between like your academics, lacrosse, and also your social life on top of that?
Yeah, so at Albany was, in the fall, the coaches did a great job of kind of scheduling, I guess some Division I programs, I guess in the fall, kind of go like 5 times a week, 5 to 6. For us, we had practice on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We would have off on Thursdays, which would be kind of like an academic day, kind of everything you need. Say you need to put in some extra work in a couple classes. That's what Thursdays were for. Obviously, you would have your own classes on Thursdays, but you would have no practice or lift or anything like that. So, that was a big day for us. And then Fridays we would have practice, and then we would have off on the weekends in the fall. So you had 3 days right there where you kind of have nothing, nothing that's mandatory for lacrosse or weightlifting. So that was kind of, that was really a big help. For me, I struggled a little bit, in the fall, my freshman year. I think for me, I think I was putting a lot of work into lacrosse and just trying to get acclimated in that aspect. So I think early on, like my first like progress report, I was struggling a little bit. But it's just managing your time and, managing your social life, your time, lacrosse and, your studying and your homework and all that. So I think it's just trying to find the right balance between all three of those It's definitely tough at first, but as you get along, with your college career, you kind of realize that school is the most important, and then after that, for me, I was obviously really dedicated to lacrosse. And then my social life came after that.
Gotcha. So you'd say your coaches kind of balanced it for you. You didn't have to do much in that realm. Your coaches
Yeah,
balance your time.
So Coach Marr was the head coach, and then I was lucky to have Coach Gleason, who's the head coach at Siena right now. He was my assistant coach, and then at the time, I had another assistant coach, Wolf, who's now the head coach at NJIT. But yeah, they just did a great job of just checking in on the freshmen. We had study hall that was mandatory for all freshmen right when we got there. So they did a great job of just kind of making sure that we got acclimated and that everyone has enough time to do their schoolwork and then also concentrate on lacrosse and also have like I said before, having a social life. Like obviously when I got in there, all the kids in the team, 40 kids, I just became so close with everyone. It didn't really matter if you were a freshman or a senior. Everyone was treated the same, and you really built those relationships the first couple weeks of the when I got to college, because we really didn't have any mandatory lacrosse. The practice didn't start for a couple weeks when I got there, so those first couple weeks you get to hang out with the guys, really just get to know each other before practice actually starts.
Gotcha. And then so as a current coach now, what have you kind of noticed in your time at Marist, like is the hardest for kids to get acclimated to coming in from high school?
I think there's a couple things. And I think in the lacrosse aspect, like I said before about me just kind of not playing, I guess, against the best talent in high school. I think that goes a huge way the first couple of weeks. I think just getting acclimated to the speed of the game. I know in high school there's no shot clock. In college there's a shot clock now, so I think that's a huge part. Getting up and down the field, the transition part, just running with these guys. I think weightlifting. I think getting in the weight room. Some guys as a freshman that might be a little smaller. And you're going against seniors who are some big dudes. So I think that getting acclimated to the weight room, and just to the speed of the game is definitely huge.
Gotcha. And then like as overall, like as a someone that's a freshman coming in, what are the top things that you think they should do to put themselves in a position that they could get some see time early on in their college career?
Yeah, I think just not getting off track. Like when you get to school, show your teammates that you're willing to put in work off the field. Obviously everyone's got to go to practice to play, but it's what you do off the field that's gonna be the determining factor. And maybe if you're just kind of how you progress throughout the year. Obviously the fall's not the real season, but you put in a lot of work in the fall. We lift 4 times a week in the fall. So it's just everything off the field, I'd say. It's, if you're a midi, putting up extra shots after practice. If you're a defenseman, maybe doing some footwork stuff, doing some 1v1s for some guys. Goalies taking more shots after practice, on your days off. So I think it's all about what you're putting in after practice, and obviously the same thing with school, making sure your grades are up to par so you can be eligible to play. And for us, we have our team's a 3.25. We want everyone on the team to have over a 3.25. So that's huge for us. But just kind of managing all aspects of just putting in some work after practice is huge.
Gotcha. Is there any advice you have for guys coming in next year?
I would say, I would say just going off my career, I guess, and my experiences, just go in and just work as hard as you could, and enjoy it. I think that's the biggest thing. You're going to be right when you go into college, right when your first day, you're going to have 40 guys in the team, um, who are going to be, kind of, I would say, like your best friends. You're going to be with them every day. So just put in as much work as you could, get great grades, and then, the social life and hanging out with your friends and all that will come after that. And but keep meeting the main thing, and that's school and lacrosse.
Awesome. Thank you for the interview.
Of course.
I'm here with Coach Dunn and Coach Capinos. Both graduated Loyola in 2012. Coach Dunn went to Maryland and Coach Capinos went to Ohio State. What would you guys say the transition was like coming from high school into your college freshman year?
Yeah, I'll take it. Or go first. It was definitely difficult, I think, for me. And a lot of my classmates, like the freshman fall was pretty challenging, just like being in a completely different environment. I'll say I do feel like academically that like going to Loyola helped me a lot, because kids come from all over the place, and you do realize once you get to college that this place actually does prepare you pretty well, and actually more so than a lot of other kids get. But just the combination of factors, being in a fully new environment, not living at your parents' house for most people for the first time, the requirements of being on a team and being the youngest person on a team again, like you go from your senior year where you're like, established and known and comfortable, to being a freshman at a competitive program. And I think just, on the lacrosse field, just like the speed of the game, what they demanded from you, and then everywhere else, like, you're just responsible for your own schedule, making sure you're getting your work done. Nobody's looking over your shoulder. So just like time management, prioritizing, and being independent,
What would you say, Coach Casey?
Yeah, it was really exciting because it was something completely different. Going to a new school, meeting new people, learning new, going to different classes, and that was all exciting stuff. But at the same time, it was, you're trying to find your way and figure everything out. The good thing was that I had some guys that I already knew going into it, which made the transition easier. And, coaches made sure that, you had people supporting you in those times where you're trying to figure things out and trying to understand your class schedule, understand what the workload's like, going to practice. So we had people that were really supportive as far as staff, and then seniors on the team. And then, you're trying to get your bearings of where your classes are, what's the layout like, how much time does it take in between practice and getting to class, and, where's the best spots on campus to eat. So the transition was really just trying to get your bearings and understanding the workload and meeting new people and meeting new friends, which was all fun and exciting. And then transitioning from that to sophomore year, all that going into it. So that's, you feel more comfortable and you kind of know what to expect, and that's kind of the year that can determine like which way you're going to go, if you're going to kind of take the easy path or, have that established ground and then, build from that.
What was the hardest like individual challenge that you guys faced going into college? It could be lacrosse or it could be like academic school life.
I would say hardest challenge would be on the lacrosse field would be, the change of speed. As far as lacrosse, you could give guys more cushion, you could give guys more space. The ball moved a little bit slower, recoveries were a little bit slower. But as you transition onto the field, guys could shoot from 15, and guys could find that open window inside that's a smaller window than you're used to. So understanding the speed of the game, that definitely changed. And so film definitely helped with that, and just kind of getting the reps. That was definitely a challenge first year.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think like the one thing I always tell people, and Casey said, is like the game is so fast. And I think for me, I remember starting the first day we were on the field, even before practice, like I was still wearing my high school Loyola helmet because they hadn't given us gear yet. And we're just like throwing, the freshmen just out there just like tossing around. And Coach Tillman came out and starts like showing me how to throw. and like teaching me throwing for him, just like we were kind of doing the other day. And I was like, dude, like, you recruited me here, like, I was like a good high school player, like I know how to catch it. Now he was like taking the time, and I was like, wow. And I was like realizing that there's so much more to all of this. And then the next day we had our first actual practice, which we did a red and white scrimmage. And I remember looking around and just thinking like I don't belong here. Maryland had just lost a championship the year before, and they returned the whole defense, and they were all like All-Americans, like Jesse Bernhardt and Michael Earhart running around the field. And I just remember thinking like, I don't know how I fit in. And I think the hardest thing was surviving like those doubts, and like I was fortunate to have like good mentors and stuff, and like kind of be able to push through it. But I think like, getting up to speed and believing in yourself that like you're just taking a huge step up. It's not like gradual, like high school stops here and you go enter where your college is, and they've all been playing together for years. So there's not a gradual ramp to it. Like most of the time, like you're just getting thrown in. So I think surviving that initial start was a really big challenge, but yeah, that was tough.
Gotcha. And then if you guys had to break down your like percentage wise, like for your time commitment from lacrosse, school, and then like social life, how would you say it balanced out?
I'd say lacrosse was probably about, close to 4 to 5 hours a day, and then you take it home sometimes and watch film if you're getting ready for a game. Fall was definitely less than the spring, so fall was probably, an hour and a half practice, maybe 2 hours. You do a lift in there. You do that for about 8 weeks or so, maybe 10 weeks, depending on how much time you're allotted. You have about 2 scrimmages, maybe 3. As far as school, you're probably taking close to 19 to 20 credit hours, which classes are probably spending, each day about 6 hours in the classroom. And then you also have study hall hours, so you have to hit 8 hours a week as a freshman. That's how we did it at Ohio State. And then if you had good grades, the hours went down, but if your grades were struggling, you'd have to get more study hall time. So you're spending about five hours with lacrosse. You're spending about maybe 6 with school, maybe less on some days, more on others. And then as far as the recovery, you're recovering at home. You're trying to stretch, doing those things, foam rolling. So it's a full-time commitment for sure.
Yeah, ours is pretty similar. I think the buckets are like seasonal is really important. So like fall versus winter versus spring. And then I also think like freshman versus sophomore, junior versus senior. For us, I think fall, you're probably looking at, we had study hall and stuff like that early on. But fall, I would say, maybe you go out and do stuff socially 2 or 3 nights a week in the fall. And the season is probably one night a week tops after a game. In the fall, we were probably doing something lacrosse related 4 or 5 days a week, maybe 6, but usually 4 or 5, and then school, so school then can take a little more. You might take 15 credits in the fall and 12 in the spring or something. So I would say probably, a little more heavily social in school in the fall. Spring hits, like it's lacrosse then probably takes about like easily 2/3 of your time, if not more. Just like practices, travel, film, all that stuff. But so yeah, definitely seasonal. But I think a lot of guys try to prioritize like, hey, if you can get a winter class and a summer class in, get your hard classes in the fall. Spring, take the ones you have to take in the spring. But it usually shifts pretty heavily lacrosse like in season.
So you guys try to like load up on like schoolwork wise in the fall, and the spring is a little bit more relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might take like some online classes in the spring, or take a little bit easier class in the spring, just because there's so much demand that you have in the spring with traveling, like Coach Dunn said.
Yeah, we had a J term too at Maryland. So if like your school offers like this, it's a 1 month term. So you take basically 1 full class, 3 credits in a month, and you just go to like, it's like, it kind of stinks. It's like 3 hours a day. I took our business law class. That was like the worst one ever. But guys will strategically knock out a tough class in something like that.
What would you say like for guys making the transition? Like, what do you think they need to do in their own time to put themselves in the best position to see time as early as possible on the college field?
I think it's, you're going to go and there's going to be a lot of new things. And it's going to be for, my guess, everybody in my experience, they've had some type of struggle, some guys more than others, but it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be different. So just controlling all the things you can, right? Like, go in shape, go in with a stick you can catch and throw with. Like, you do those two things, and then you're going to struggle with other things, but don't be the guy that's like failing the run test or like losing every like sprint or whatever, or dropping every pass. Like, you can manage through those things. And then I think the next piece is just understanding that it's going to be challenging. And like, I think a lot of guys, they might come from a high school where maybe they were having a lot of success because they're probably, they were probably pretty good if they're going to play college lacrosse. And understanding that like you're going to have to compete for playing time again, and being okay with like getting feedback and asking a coach for like hey, I'm not understanding this. Can we watch this type of film? So I think the two things, like, and the second one I really had to learn through my freshman year. The first one that was kind of advice I was given. It was like, look, it's going to be hard. Show up in shape. Like, when you get there, like, don't just try to pass the run test, like, try to win the run test. Like, it's like, okay, I can show up in shape. 2, make sure you have a stick that you can catch and throw with the other guy dropping the ball. So I did those things. And then throughout the fall, my coach was like, hey, like, like, you're struggling with this. You should come by and watch film. And I was always like, for whatever reason, like, afraid to go to my coach's office and schedule more time with him, because like, I was like, whatever.
I just be that guy.
Yeah. But I did it, and that helped me a ton, because all of a sudden the same thing, I was like, I don't know what you mean when you say I'm not rotating through passing lanes. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. And then he's like, showed me the film, broke it down, like, oh, okay. And then I started doing it, and it made sense. So those are the kind of two things that, like, control the controllable, show up prepared, and then you're going to struggle. Don't be afraid to ask, whether it's an older guy or a coach, like, ask for help when you struggle, because if you just internalize it, like, it's going to be so much more difficult to kind of take those next steps.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, show up in shape, that's something you can control. And just be a sponge. Like, understand, like, when you go there, try to learn as much as you can. So when you're not getting those reps, you might not get as many reps as a senior, but when you're not getting those reps, you're getting mental reps. You're watching what they're doing. And if you're on the sideline, you're always paying attention, you're always focused, and you're imagining yourself taking that rep. And I think also go into it with a growth mindset, like Coach said. Like, you might be a guy that was starting on your high school team, and then you go in there having that expectation of like, oh, I'm just going to start and things are going to come easy. But like, I think the guys that really succeed go into it with humility, with trying to learn, trying to get better every single day, and trying to make their teammates better, asking questions from seniors, from coaches, watching as much film as possible. I mean, that definitely helped. And, it makes the transition that much smoother.
Sweet. Thanks for the time.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.